Jason Stacks. Jehovah earlier, when he was scaring the wits out of me, he said, after I get the police to go, you mind showing us Jason Stacks? I said, nobody wants to go on Jason Stacks. Well, I didn't know that he wanted me to show it. I thought he wanted me to go on it, or I don't know. But there's Jason Stacks. What the hell's wrong with his mouth on this one? That's a cigar wrap. I think I was rolling a cigar. They think I'm evil. He's not that evil. Jason Stacks isn't that evil. He's the all-seeing eye of the rap game. Machine Gun Gotti. I think this is a long-lost tape. You'll never be able to listen to Machine Gun Gotti. And you'll never be able to kill StacksAMilli either. So think again. Think again. CTM Music Group presents La Cosa Nostra. I think this is another exclusive. Because of the way Gotti acted, he went to prison and he lost everything. And that was hosted by DJ Scratches. And he probably invested about $20,000 to record that album, La Cosa Nostra. Man, they got robbed left and right, people are saying. I heard so-and-so got hit for 20 G's. That's the word in the street. Gunplay. Hit Gotti for 10 G's. Maybach. Guess what? Guess who's never been robbed in Canada? StacksAMilli. He never been robbed, really. Big Stacks. Even the police know me as Big Stacks. I mean, knock on the door all day. You know what I mean? Knock on the door all day. Let's see. Collaboration. Folk. Yeah, I'm a citizen. I can go to the hospital. That's a lie. He's a citizen. Here I am at the Marigold. Actually, that's the night they tried to rob me. They tried to rob me, and I took my money over to the Marigold. Yup. Oh. Fuck. Yup. This guy, who's this guy? Benny. Well, when I got out of the prison, I was incarcerated for 5 months. And when I returned back to society, I had to live at these shelters, or I never lived at them before. But I'll tell you what, these shelters are just like JLA, except people got stuff, and there happened to be a lot of guys in there, whatever, and Benny was one of them. And man, look at how we were living. So they gave me a 6-month sentence. I agreed to a 6-month sentence. But after I had went to all these Salvation Armies and all that, I ended up doing like 4 years. Because I've never been to the Salvation Army before. But it's just like jail. They call it a halfway house. So as much as I've said, oh, it was just some free time, free rent, free this and free that. When you do finally beat the charges, I mean, unless you're extremely wealthy, like Chris Brown, you end up in the halfway house. And I had to stay in the halfway house Next thing you know, it was a couple of years. I was so tired. So they get more sentence out of you. So now I'm a little bit more intelligent when it comes to their sentencing. Don't agree on even a slight sentence. Because even an agreement on a slight sentence, it's going to be a way more of a time than you think it was going to be. You know, you thought you were only going for 6, and then it's 2/3, 4 or 5 months. Or say they only offer, but once you get in there, they do everything they can. They did everything they could. I mean, every day, every single day in jail, when you wake up and go out to the yard, it was mostly when I was going out to the yard. Get ready for the whole job of it. You think you're only going in there for 2 months. You think you're only going there for 2 months, but then you end up and man, I learned how to act in society to ensure that I'm not one of these guys, that somebody else is, not me, because, well, you have to commit crimes in order to go to jail. That's the law. And unless you can put a crime on somebody, but guess what? What did I learn in jail? Well, most of the guys that live in there, they're a certain way. All right? So what I'm dealing with now, though, is sometimes these guys are overly corrupt. Because they're not all the way corrupt. Because if they were all the way corrupt, they'd get shot and killed. So they're kind of like this under-the-table corrupt. So what I learned today with my training, when they didn't enter my apartment with their fake charges. Because they knew I would have shot them, and then it would have went to court, and I would have beat it. Because I would have went to trial. But a lot of these guys here, they're brazen. They never been one of these guys. See, I'm higher up than these guys. I'd never, ever put myself in this position of walking around in a jail. But that's the job that they do, right? And I'm in support of them. But my job is to not become one of these, the inmates. And I've learned how to do that. Do not present yourself to the police. Stay away from them even when they're coming for you. Then eventually they lose energy and they realize that they were not in the right. Because if you're doing something wrong, generally the police don't have to come for you. You'll basically just put yourself in their hands. And you have to actually literally put yourself into their hands. It's not just some automatic system. And most people that never learn that, but see, like one of these guys. I'm like one of these guys. Just a normal guy. He worked, paid taxes. But then the police showed up at my door and said I did something that I didn't do. Because my mother said I did something that I didn't do. Next thing you know, this guy ends up in jail for 4 months for a self-defense or something. But he beat the charges. So if he's out of jail and the police can't get him and all that, just leave the guy alone. That's a good guy. But what about this guy that keeps hanging out with the kids? Trying to get them to do this and do that. And the police might even mess with that guy. You know why? Because this guy and the police and all that, they're friends. They hang out together. They have sex together. And the dogs, I get along more with the dogs. And that's what the police can't believe. Well, you know why? Because the dogs are sensing innocence. They sense fear. They sense a lot of things. So I know that you can trust the dog usually. But don't even become one of those guys where it's a trust the dog usually. Try to maintain a good relationship with the police. That's what I always wanted to do. He made some money, or he established himself, or he got his ODSP entitlement or whatever. And, well, I wanted to be this person where the police knew who I was, that I wasn't, because I happen to have the tattoos. I knew they would have judged me. So I think I've gotten to that point now. I mean, most definitely. I mean, and that's all it was. I had gotten intimidated. I had to serve an illegal sentence. And because I put a tattoo on my hand that I shouldn't have, it was all for a gimmick, and it ended up it didn't ruin my life, but it sure did put a swindle on my life. Because I was planning on, I wanted to be law enforcement, but unfortunately because my father wasn't very rich, I never got to finish school. But I held the intelligence to become a sheriff or a OPP or something. And I worked with federal law enforcement, but I did end up in jail. But guess what? I never lost my privilege to own firearms, so that really does mean something in court. And that's why I am in freedom. And that's why I'm a firearm owner now. And hey, keep a level head. And even if you go to jail, you can get out and you can one day become a member of society. And that kind of was my big investment. It was like